My name is Amanda Subalusky. I'm a doctoral candidate here at Yale University, and my husband Chris Dutton and I work together in the Mara River of Kenya. And the Mara is a beautiful river that flows out of the mountains in the highlands of Kenya and down through the Maasai Mara National Reserve and Serengeti National Park of Tanzania, and then flows west into Lake Victoria. And it sustains one of the last remaining large overland migrations in the world of over 1.5 million wildebeest, and also a lot of other wildlife like elephants and zebra, and one of the other things we study, which is over 4,000 hippos that live in the river. And we're interested in studying the Mara because it's a great place to study the role of large animals in moving resources around the landscape, and in this case particularly from the savanna grasslands into the river. So every year this migration of wildebeest come up from Tanzania and spend the dry season in the Mara, and during river crossings sometimes they drown in these mass drowning events that can result in over 7,000 carcasses a year going into the river. And at the same time you have hippos making this daily migration from the river where they live out into the grasslands where they feed every night, and bringing in up to 18 pounds of feces every day just into the river. And these two forms of loading from animals have really profound effects on the food web and the ecosystem of the river. And we're studying how that happens and how that's changing as some of those animal populations have rebounded over the last few decades. And it's a fabulous opportunity to understand how large river systems may have been structured by large animals around the world. For example, the American West, we don't think of now as being structured by large migrating herds, but even 200 years ago, huge herds of bison migrating across the plains probably had large effects on the river ecosystems that they crossed. And this gives us an opportunity to study really an end member in river systems around the world that are shaped by wildlife.
So the Mara River really is an extreme ecosystem. Just in the last 50 years, the hippo population has gone from several hundred individuals to over 4,000 individuals currently. And the migration, the great wildebeest migration that comes up from the Serengeti into the Mara River area, the migration has gone from probably a few thousand individuals to over 1.5 million wildebeest. So it's just a massive amount of wildlife coming into a system that may be more reflective of much older times.
With all of the resource loading that's brought in by large animals, we really do see big increases in both nitrogen and phosphorus, but also carbon levels down in the reach of river that's impacted by large wildlife. We immediately thought that this would be good for the ecosystem. They're bringing in a lot of energy and a lot of nutrients that could be uptaken by the food web, and we see some evidence of that. There's larger amounts of fish biomass in this reach of the river, some evidence of increased production. However, we also see, because of this large amount of carbon being brought in, declines in dissolved oxygen, particularly during low flow levels. And when the river flushes during a flood event, it stirs up a lot of the organic matter hippos are bringing in, and can actually lead to hypoxic events and fish kills, with thousands of fish dying. So there seems to be both a good and a potentially bad side to this resource loading that's really mediated by the flow levels in the river.
Our work on hippos and wildebeest in the Mara gives us the ability to ask questions about the role of these large wildlife that we can't ask anywhere else because they're missing from most of the ecosystems of the world. We've studied fish in the Pacific Northwest and here in Connecticut. We've studied geese in Europe and North America, but none of them have the impact that the wildebeest and the hippos have on this large unregulated river. We think what's going on in the Mara rivers, what would have happened in rivers all across the world historically. This system gives us the ability to answer questions we can't address anywhere else in the world.